we'll just start from there. So your name, and then we'll go back all the way to 1940s, how old you were at the time, what you were doing, your status, profession, schooling, before the 10th of June, and then the subsequent treatment afterwards, and what happened to your dad.
Yeah, okay. Well, my name is Aurelio Tarquini, as you know, and I was born in London, in the Elephant Castle, as it so happens. And in 1932, I went to school in Camberwell, and ordinary elementary school. And from there, I went to right up until the Italians came into the war. I was there, and I had to leave because we had trouble being Italians. Myself and another boy who came to England just before the war, a chap called Aurelio Tarquini, he was a friend of mine, and he's still alive today, thank God. And he and I were subjected to abuse, real abuse, and physical violence. One day during meals in the school, we were having a meal, and of course there was a bit of ruckus, and we got insulted, and we retaliated, and it caused a big rumpus, and we left the school, and from there we went to St George's at Southwark, and that school was a different thing, kettle of fish altogether. It was run at the time by nuns of the Sacred Heart Convent in Kennington or Southwark by the cathedral, and they had had Italians in the St George's School for generations. They wouldn't put up with any nonsense about nationality or racism. They wouldn't put up with it at all. In fact, I always remember we had a fight with a particular chap who was again insulting, and then Mother Superior got all the school together and told them that she wasn't going to put up with this sort of thing, and that the Italians, when Julius Caesar came to this country, I always remember she said this, when Julius Caesar came to this country, she said, we were walking on all fours, she said, and it was Julius Caesar, the Italians, who taught us how to walk upright. So, you know, it was a different kettle of fish altogether, and things were much better in that school. But yeah, we stayed there, and during the bombing as well, in that area. But I used to travel all the way from Forest Hill to St George's in Southwark to go to school. In fact, the teacher, I used to meet my teacher on the bus here in Forest Hill, and we travelled together in the morning, and at the evening I used to wait for her, and we used to get on the bus in St George's Road and come all the way back. In those days, St George's Road had two-way traffic. Now it's only all one-way system, but in those days it was a two-way traffic. And we used to get our bus outside the Notre Dame convent and come home all the way here, and she used to go on to Penge. And I knew that lady until she turned 90, and she died a few years ago. But Miss Plumer, her name was. Anyway, that was that, and then in 1945 I left school, and I went into the catering business. I went to be a chef and trained in the West End, and stayed there for quite till 1948, when my father decided to take all the family to South America, and we stayed there till 1950, came back. But the part that you're more interested in, I think, is the behaviour of the people during that time when Italy declared war on England. My father was working, I wasn't working at that time, I was too young, but my father was working with my eldest brother, and they were kicked out of their job immediately that night. My father had the day off, and my brother was told to tell my father not to come back anymore, and he never worked again for 6.5 years. But what
was this? What job was this?
It was a chef in a restaurant, because they weren't allowed to employ Italians or aliens, Germans or Italians, and then a majority of them were interned. A lot of my father's friends were interned, and some of them went on the Isle of Man, and others went to on the Arandora Star, and of course you never saw them anymore. But that was a terrible tragedy. We were insulted, right, left and centre. We were in the street. We were spat at. We were ill-treated. We were not allowed. They tried to make it that we couldn't use the surface shelter that was across the road, which we were entitled to because we were resident there. And they tried to stop us going in there. They couldn't do that. So we used to go in there every night and lay down our mattress and sleep in the shelter. And on some nights they used to leave me, because obviously I was to sort of stay there and keep the place. And the times that I was insulted, in fact on one occasion they actually came and urinated on the mattress so that we couldn't use it. So we got all that sort of thing as our window. My cousin, who's now my cousin because I married him, and married Rosa, it's her cousin really, they had a shop in Camberwell, and their windows were always being smashed as soon as they put them back. They threw bricks through them and all sorts of things. So we had to put up with a lot of intimidation, if you like, and we were very badly treated in that way. My father was not allowed to have a bicycle, he wasn't allowed to have a radio. We were allowed to have a radio, but my father, so just imagine if my father was to get up in his own house and go out of the room because we were listening to the radio, which was a nonsense. Of course we never did. But that was the law at that time, that no alien was allowed to have a radio. Every time we weren't allowed out after 9 o'clock. There was a curfew for aliens, and if you changed address you had to go and get the police permission before you changed your address and your job. So that's what went on for quite some time. And when the Arandora Star business came on, that was a terrible tragedy, as you well know. And my father used to go to see a friend of his, Nakini, which used to live just over the hill here, and he had 2 sons. Nakini went to work, and he was working as a chef, and they came and took him away. They never even let him go home. Never saw his wife or children again, and it was very, very sad. And I still remember to this day going with my mother and father to the house over there, because we didn't live up here in those days. We lived in Peckham, and we came up here because Mrs. Nakini, the wife, was going to the Italian consul to try and find out some information about her husband. And when we arrived at the house, the mother, she was in a terrible distressed state because she'd gone out, and when she came back the house was been ransacked. So they'd gone in there looking, smashed the doors and everything, and they'd gone in there looking for some evidence that he was a fascist, and he wasn't. All he ever did was to work in the kitchens and do his job, and he went to the Italian club, and how they found him was because he actually found he used to play snooker, and he found this snooker clue that he liked, and he wrote his name on it. And he virtually on that cue he signed his own death warrant, because that's how they found him. They wouldn't have found him otherwise. And my father never got interned through a stupid little thing, because my father had a strong accent. Spoke English well, but he had a strong accent. And when he went to give his address at the police station where he had to register, he said, I live in number 48 Peckham Road, but it sounded like Peckham Road. And when we moved from Peckham Road to here, we had to get permission to move. He went to the police station, and they said to him, where have you been? We've been looking all over for you. So he said, well, yeah. So he said, well, look, where do you live? He said, 48 Peckham Road. Peckham Road? They said, yeah. Oh, we've been looking for Peckham Road. Now, would you not think, if they had a bit of intelligence, they sort of say the police haven't got much intelligence today. I don't think they had much in those days either. But that was a good thing in my father's case, because he never got interned. They couldn't find him. And he was under their noses all the time. You know, it just goes to show how stupid things are. We did suffer an awful lot. My mother used to stand up for herself quite a bit. We always thought she was going to get arrested one day because she wouldn't stand any nonsense, but luckily she didn't. My oldest brother had an English girlfriend at the time, and on the day after Italy declared war, a note came through the letterbox. She didn't want everything more to do with him, and that was that. A little while later, my brother actually was in the army. He served 6 years in the British Army during the war, but they never sent him abroad. That's one thing they never did, because they said he was a liability if he went abroad with a name like Tarquini, you know. So they put him. He was up in the 51st Highland Division up in Scotland. Then they got wiped out in North Africa, and they remustered with all sorts of people. And it was once upon a time it was only just Scots were allowed in the 51st Highland Division, but they remustered, and my brother was allocated to them, and he was up in Elgin in Scotland for quite a while. Then they were shipped out to North Africa again, and he was shipped down to Aldershot in the officers' mess, because again he was in catering, you see. And he was shipped to the officers' mess in Aldershot and stayed there until the end of the war. Suited him fine, of course. But yes, so...
So your brother actually served for the British
Oh yes,
Army?
he spent 6.5 years he served in the British Army. And the other brother, the middle brother, would have served also, but unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, I think it's fortunately, he contracted a mastoid. And he nearly died in St Thomas's Hospital. In fact, they came to collect him, and he went to see him in St Thomas's Hospital. And he was the only thing that saved his life was penicillin at the time. It had just come in, and I remember in those days there was £5 an injection. One injection, he had to have an injection every 4 hours, and it cost him £5 an injection. Not to us, it was in, you know, all under the national health, if you like. But he was very, very ill, and of course when he came out, he still hasn't to this day. He hasn't got any hearing at all in one ear, and so they left him. They didn't take him for the army, but he would have gone if.
Did they get their? Are you registered in Italy as well?
Yeah.
So did you get military call-up papers from the?
Yeah, we did. We all got them, but my two brothers. Well, the eldest brother, of course, he served during the war. When they wouldn't call him anymore because he was too old by that time. The other brother, they didn't, because he was medically unfit, they didn't take him. And me, I had to have a special document every time I went to Italy for my holidays, to say they wouldn't take me. And I used to have to report to the police in Italy and show them this document, and they let me in and out of Italy. But if I didn't have those document, which was issued by the Italian consulate here, I would have been taken for the army over there as well, because we had dual nationality, you see, and that's why I didn't do the military service in this country, funnily enough, because when I went at 18 to do my military service, I was going to join the RAF, and I landed a very good job, and I didn't want to really go and do the army which was, I think in those days, was 28 shillings a week. When I had this job, I was being paid about £5 a week, £5 or £6 a week. So I then said to them, well, I want a deferment till I'm 21. And I was born on the 9th of January 1932. And on the morning I was 21, I was coming down the stairs of my house, and a letter came through the letterbox on my birthday calling me for the British Army. So I went up, and I played dumb, stupid and everything else. I couldn't hear, this, that and the other. And they made me grade 4. So I didn't have to go to the army.
That was national service?
That was national service time, yeah. And that was when I was 21 by this time. So right at that time, of course, I had a better job still, and I didn't want to go in the army. But, so I never went.
So getting back to, say, June the 10th, it must have been quite a big shock from suddenly being a friendly alien to an enemy alien in this country. The way people treated you.
They turned completely like that.
Right. So in one, it's like the letter that your brother's.
Yeah.
That your brother got from his girlfriend.
Yeah.
People spitting on you in the street, not letting you use the shelters.
Yeah.
It must have been quite a sudden flip from one day to the next.
Yes, it was. The sort of thing that we. In those days, they used to give you sandbags, bags of sand, about that like that, you know. You know, you've seen them in the pictures, and when the soldiers build them up, where they've got guns and everything. We used to get those sandbags on your doorstep. Every house had two, and it was really basically, if there was an incendiary bomb, you threw this on top, the sand on top, you see. Our house wasn't given any. And my mother went to Camberwell Town Hall to ask for them. And they said, oh yes, we'll send you some along, but they never did, so she went back. And he tried to fob her off again, and she said, I'm staying here. And she sat in the town hall all day long and refused to leave until they sent the sandbags round to our house. Now that was a silly, stupid thing, but that's how it was. They didn't want to give us anything, they didn't want to help us in any way. They were totally, we were Italians, we were enemy, and we were rubbish, and they didn't care what happened to us. And even your friends, well, not your good friends you didn't, but I mean the majority of friends, they treated you bloody eye ties. Wops, we were called.
And then after the
Well, afterwards, when the war ended, I mean, we still had a bit of it going on in those days, but when the war ended, it was a bit different because a lot of the guys, the soldiers are coming back, and they've been to Italy, and they've been well treated by the Italian people when they went through on the campaign. And the British people before the war were very ignorant. They hadn't travelled very much. And then they started to travel. And they went to Italy for their holidays, they went to France for their holidays, and Germany. And they got to know that these people over the other side of the water were human beings just like they were. You know? And they learned that, yeah, they're nice people. They smile and they laugh and they joke and you know, they're nice to us when we go there, because we were always nice to people. We didn't. Well, you do. If you're in somebody else's house, you always behave yourself, don't you? I mean, Rosa tells us her grandfather who said, you know, in this house we're Italians, but when you go outside, you're British. You act like the people in the street. You don't bring shame on this family.
Did you know anyone close relatives of your, or relatives or friends who actually ended up on the Arandora Star?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the gentleman at Scala.
Scala, he didn't go on the Arandora Star. He wasn't on the Arandora Star. He was interned in the Isle of Man, and then brought back from there. No, Scala wasn't on the Arandora Star, but people who were on the Arandora Star, like Tarquini, who died. Another chap who was lived in Kennington, Malgadoni was his name, Malgadoni, something like that. I can't remember his name now. I don't remember the names anymore. With even my Alzheimer's comes along and I've forgotten lots of the names. But there were, and my father knew a lot of people that just on that night they never came back. They were taken, they were interned, and they were put on the Arandora Star, and that was the end of it.
How did do you remember any newspapers that were around? How did they cover the story, or the reaction?
Well, the first reaction was that the Germans had sunk the Arandora Star, because they did. Germans did sink the Arandora Star, but and they tried to make capital out of that. But the point was, the Arandora Star was a merchant ship, and it carried a gun. And the Germans knew it. I mean, their fifth column knew every boat that was afloat. And what should have been done was that boat should have been disarmed, and there should have been a red cross on it. On the side should have been painted with a red cross, a massive great red cross, which was a big circle with a big cross on it, and that was on all hospital ships, because that's what it should have been. I'm sure the Germans would never intentionally sunk their own people, because there were Germans on board the Arandora Star as well as Italians. They would never have done such a thing. And that was a contravention of the Geneva Convention. They should never have set sail without disarming the ship. Because when the Italians were on board.
Was there an explanation offered by the government, the Home Office, when people...
I don't know. In those days, you see, they did never explain anything to people.
So this disaster happened, and then to find information about it, just to say you had a relative on the ship, was there anywhere you could go? And
Yeah,
find
only
out?
to the Italian consulate if it was you were Italian, or German embassy if it was German. Well, not German embassy because the German embassy was closed, but they had the Swedish embassy actually worked in this country for the Germans, and then the Italians afterwards they worked for the Italians as well. But Sweden, as you know, was neutral in the last war. So yeah, that was why. But you never got explanations of anything.
So it must have been quite well, you know, because you want to know what's happening. They're not informed at all, or have any point of reference to go to especially the Italian consulate. But what about the British, like the Home Office or the War Office?
Well, you went to the Home Office or the War Office. They give you whatever information they wanted to give you. They palm you off, and it was the mentality of people at that time, because that's the way people were, you know, brought up, that if they turned around and you said, you know, the moon was made of cream cheese, well, it was made of cream cheese, and people didn't dispute it because the government has said so. It's not like today. Today, the young people of today, for instance, ask questions. Well, in our day, young people kept their mouths shut. They were told something. If they asked a question, they were told an answer, and that's what they had to accept.
So government propaganda probably had quite a big role to do in terms of people not trusting, say, the aliens who were in the country at the time.
Yes, absolutely.
Such as various posters.
Yeah, that's right. There's posters everywhere. To not trust aliens, to tell people. Because remember, all the street signs, every street, all the roads, all their names were all taken away. There was nothing to signify where you were.
Okay.
And in some cases, it's never gone back.
So Canonby Road wouldn't exist?
No, it wouldn't be signified as Canonby Road. There'd be no sign for Canonby Road, or Mercer's Road, or any of those roads in which he lived, or any road. They took them all down. Even the tube stations. You had to know where you were going, because you didn't see outside Piccadilly Circus. There was no indication of where you were. Oh, you go down the road now and it says 10 miles to Folkestone. Well, it never said 10 miles to Folkestone, never said anything.
Right, so I suppose you had to have a real knowledge of the local area.
Well, yeah, where you were going and what you were going to do.
Otherwise, you would have been obvious.
You might as well go down to Cornwall, you know, instead of going to Folkestone. You had to know where you're going. Nothing was signified at all, and of course you had no lighting at night, only the small lights. Keep it, you know, everywhere was blacked out. You never had windows like this, so it was all covered over every night. And if you had a thing like this, for instance, you lit a candle, they'd come round and the police would be on you in a ton of bricks. ARP wardens would be round.
Do you think they were right to intern the Italians?
To intern them? No, I don't think it was right. What they should have done, in my opinion, and what they would do today, is investigate the individuals before you intern them. Not intern them first and then try and investigate them afterwards. Because what happens to save your face, you incriminate them when they have got nothing to be incriminated with. Forcefully incriminate them.
But weren't there tribunals? Did your dad ever go to a tribunal?
No, there's no tribunal. There wasn't such a thing as a tribunal. The only tribunal you had was the conscientious objectors tribunal. The ones who didn't want to fight under any circumstances. They were brought before a tribunal before they were sent to prison. Or they were P18s, I think they called them, when they were allowed to do things like go down the mines rather than serve in the army. And if they objected, because some people on conscientious grounds, their conscience would not allow them to fire a gun, because you might kill somebody and they wouldn't kill anybody. And you know, they wouldn't kill a fly, they wouldn't kill anything. Well, those people were genuine. They were let off and given jobs to do, like down the mines or some really important job that needed to be done. Because there's always those sort of jobs that don't, not only soldiers you want during the war, you want important jobs.
Civilians.
I mean, they weren't allowed, they wouldn't handle munitions if they were really genuine conscientious objectors. Their conscience wouldn't allow them to handle, you know, live ammunition or help in any way to work in a munition factory or to produce things that would kill human beings.
Why did your father then go to the police station initially?
Because they had to.
To go and register?
They had to report to the police station, yes.
And was this in the 1940s?
Yeah.
So when Italy declared war on Britain, your father went to the police station to go and...
Well, you had to go.
And where was this information being broadcast that aliens had to go and register at the police
They were told they were actually told by the radio, on the radio.
Okay, so the radio broadcast this.
Yeah.
So your dad went down to the
Police station,
to register
where he lived and what he lived, his family and everything else. They wanted to know all about him.
So essentially he went down there, that was the day he said Packham Road.
Yeah.
And then when they gave the call out to collar the lot,
They went looking for Packham Road and he wasn't there. Peckham Road was there, but Packham Road wasn't. It's because of his accent, really. He saved his life.